Welcome to Revelations with Cole Johnson, the place where we speak truth to power. I'm so glad you're able to join us. Well, our next guest says that no one cares. Okay. It's not that simple nor heartless. He says you can find freedom and power using one simple tool. And away from coaching and writing, he's a self-professed husband, father, and follower of Jesus Christ. He says he's living the life he really wants and is having fun along the way. We'll get a chance to see how much fun he is having in life. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of REF Dallas and the co-author of Nobody Cares Until You Do, author, CEO, and business coach, Robert J. Hunt. And this is his revelation. Well, it is a pleasure to have you on board. How are you doing?
Thank you. I love your music. I feel like I just walked into a W hotel. Me and my wife going away for the weekend. This will be awesome.
Oh, okay. I'll write that down. Okay. All right. Nice. We'll definitely talk about the importance of your wife and, of course, your family as well, along with other things. And I'm glad you're here. Since you're a first-time guest, this is what we like to do. We want to open the way for people. So let's open the way. Now, with Open the Way, it's conversations would start that normally you have vulnerability when it enters a room. That's when the conversation really does start. I doubt that this will be an issue or problem with you. Now, I know that you're a resident of the Metroplex. Are you a Dallas-Fort Worth native?
No, I grew up in Southern California. I moved here in 2010. I love it.
Okay. All right. Well, I have to touch on what made you move to the Metroplex, but how was life in Southern California for you?
Well, growing up there, it was awesome. I mean,
let's see if we can get him back. Starting. Hold on 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. All right. What the heck happened? All right. I'm not even hit a button. Okay. Love the music. Conversation starting to flow, and then bam. Okay. All right. Wow. So I didn't hit anything, did I? Okay. Boot him out. I don't think I did. Did I? Bueller. Okay. Hopefully I can get my mic fixed before he gets back. This is a person who is called the Accountability Dude, and I really do like how. There we go. All right. Well, let's try this again. I don't know what happened there. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got kicked out of the thing and it said, "Thanks for coming." Like, maybe I didn't do a very good job. He gave me the boot.
Oh, Lord. Well, if I gave you the boot, I apologize. I was listening to you. I was prepared. I was like, okay, he's talking about how he grew up, and all of a sudden, boop. I'm like, in the world? Okay. Well, if I did give you the boot, my apologies.
Okay. Should we just pick up where we were?
Sure. You were talking about
growing up in Southern California.
Right. Life growing up in Southern California. Yeah. So how was that for you?
Yeah, I loved living in Southern California, and actually, it feels a lot like living in Frisco, which is where we live today.
Right.
It seemed when I was young, there was plenty of land. Everyone liked being there. Everyone wanted to work with each other. There was unity. It was a beautiful place, and of course, the weather's awesome. But
Right.
as I got older and it got more and more crowded, more and more broken, I just realized this is not the state for me. That's a cool thing about our country, isn't it? You can just pick up and go to another state
Mhm.
and just say this state aligns with my values better than that state. So I'm just going to
Right.
go. And that's why I love Texas. It's me. It's home. I love it here.
It, and well, before we continue, yeah, you're talking actually to a person who grew up in Houston. So I live in Nashville now, but I grew up in Houston, so I totally get why you would love Texas.
Yeah.
Fully get it.
Yeah.
Fully 100% get it. And I'm glad you moved there. And I also know why you would love to live in the Dallas area. That's it's prime real estate for a lot of things. Business on top of it is one of them.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as a child, what were the things you enjoyed doing?
Guys, a little kid, we just played in the street all the time. We had bikes, we rode around the
Oh,
town. The rule was when the street light comes on, you better be home or you better head home. So we'd be riding around all of a sudden. It's getting darker and darker. The moment we'd see the street lights come on, we knew we got to get going and get home in time before we get in trouble. But my parents had no idea where I was half the day. We get out of school and then 3 or 4 hours, you're just riding all over the place. It was awesome.
oh my gosh. Ah, playing until you saw the street light. And that was the cue to get home.
Yeah,
Ah, those were the days.
those were the
Oh,
days.
oh my gosh. Yeah. All right. So looks like I have a lot in common with you, more than I thought I would. Okay. All right. So I mentioned that you're an author. I mentioned that you are an entrepreneur, and we'll definitely dive further into the entrepreneurial aspect of your creative and purposeful arm, shall we say? Uh, but how was your upbringing instrumental to your current core values?
Well, I think the only upbringing I can really brag about is when I came to know Jesus as my Lord and Savior. As a kid, I had a really bad dad. He was a mean person. And so
Mm.
I didn't learn anything from him other than don't piss off your parents. That was the only thing I knew that if I could just avoid making him mad, life was a lot better, which is kind of how I looked at God as a little kid. Just don't piss off God and you'll be fine. And I grew up with a little bit of a twisted perspective of God, but I think the relationship was there to give me hope, to build a foundation. I learned biblical truths that carried me throughout my life, good principles. I think that's why I really think it's weird that people don't think you should bring your faith to work, because your faith is awesome and it's who you are. But the principles that I learned in the Bible about working hard, being honest, caring for people, um, sharing, all the principles that are in there, those are good things for work. There's nothing in the Bible that would make it anti-work. It rewards work. God created work at the beginning. The first thing he did in the garden was put him to work. So my foundations of my faith have been instrumental in my career, the way I look at business, how I treat people. It's all with the underpinnings of my relationship with Jesus.
Oh, I love to hear that. And we'll definitely dive into more of that a little later. And I'm glad I'm glad that you came into an understanding of Jesus early in your life. That speaks a lot to how you are. Okay. All right. Well, besides a relationship with Christ, and I'm going to say religion, besides your relationship with Jesus, what were some of the things you learned in your formative years that helped you become the man you are today?
I was really lazy as a kid, and when I got out into the business world, I realized very quickly that nobody cares. And that was really without, as I look back at my life and my career, I barely survived in the jobs I had early on because um, I had skills and I had knowledge, but I didn't have discipline. And
Mm,
so I would do a really good job when they placed me into a situation, but I had needed someone to remind me. I needed someone to babysit me. I needed someone to give me deadlines. There wasn't a drive that was inside of me. But when I got there, I was really good. And so I had to bit by bit create things in my life that were self motivating, that were organizationally solid. I worked in an advertising agency when I graduated out of college. And when I started there, I quickly got promoted to an account executive. I took on some accounts. I grew. I did great, but it was boring. And I was finding myself very quickly uninterested. And so every job I'd get to, I'd learn how to do it really well. But if it wasn't something that kept my attention, I would lose interest and I'd need to go do something else. So I spent a couple of years in the ad agency world. I spent a couple of years in the technology composites area, and then a whole long time in the printed circuit board industry. Everything was B2B. And it was just being in that world of B2B business. And I think I learned a lot of things that probably nobody cares about, like the coefficient of thermal expansion of a circuit board. Those kind of facts that are out there that I were part of my career. One thing I had to be able to do is to create this mindset that at the end of the day, nobody's watching you to push you to do your job. You have to want to do it. You have to create a world where you self-motivate. And I think we're looking at somebody else to do it for us. And that was probably the biggest learning curve for me, was how do I get into a place where I'm driven because I'm driven, and not because someone says, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job. I didn't want to get to that level, but I found myself creating those moments by default because I had to, and it was demanded of me, but that was a bit of a learning curve.
Wow. Okay. Note to self, don't get guests who actually can climb into your brain and pull things out of you in your life. Oh my gosh. Wow.
I think we're probably all similar in a lot of ways. We're not honest about it. One of the things I do for a living, I run CEO peer groups, which means I bring business owners together and we talk about our junk. And if you're not going to be vulnerable, you can't have real accountability and you can't change things. So I've just learned in my life, I don't need to look good. Besides, everybody knows I'm not. You're not fooling a lot of people when you try and act pretentious. Certainly ask your wife. They'll tell you real quick that you're not all that. God keeps me humble through my beautiful wife. It was very kind, but she was very grounding at the same time. So I think we all have struggles, but most people aren't willing to be real about it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because I can cop. I think I was a lazy child too. Oh, wow. Ooh, yeah. Robert, I just can't be read like this on my own show. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is going to be fun. Oh, this is going to be fun. There's more. Ooh. Author, CEO, and business coach Robert J. Hunt. He joins us on Revelations with Cole Johnson. He just opened the way. He opened the way quite a big lot. But it's not over. The journey definitely is not over. Let's walk across that bridge to prosperity. Now, here on this bridge, we link childhood lessons to adult application. Now, did you attend college? And if so, where? If not, what did you do between, say, the ages of 18 to 25?
Yeah, I attended Cal State Fullerton. Okay. Keep it local.
Keep it local. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't learn anything. So here's the deal. My mom got remarried. My parents got divorced when I was a freshman, which was a great moment for me because my dad was going to be gone. And then 4 years later, my mom got remarried. And so she's like, hey, you got to move out. I'm getting married to this guy. You got to move out. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And so I was in college and I was on my own. And so I was, 19 years old. And so I worked full time. I went to school full time, and I was dating the woman that eventually would become my wife. And, it was just really long days, but again, you grow up because you have to grow up. And so I worked at night crew because I worked at a grocery store, And the first couple months I worked there, I sweated so bad because I just sweat. I'm a sweaty dude. And so I'm in the summer and I'm wearing a stupid vest and a tie, and they're making me run out and get carts. I sweated so bad. They're like, we got to put this guy in night crew. So it looks scary. So I started working from 11:30 till 7:30 in the morning, go home, shower, go to school, try and stay awake, and go home, do a few hours of homework, get a couple hours of sleep, and go back. And I did that for 5 years. And so I didn't learn anything. I passed every class. There was one I had to take over twice because I didn't pass it, but I did take it again. But I really just did the very least I had to do to graduate, because I had so much else going on and I wasn't a great student. So I don't think I learned a whole lot in college other than work hard and no excuses.
Yeah, we do learn something in college. I think that's one of the lessons that we learn. I remember a person who I value very much, and she actually ended up getting 2 master's degrees. And she bluntly said, well, a college degree, it doesn't really measure your intelligence. It actually measures you being trainable. And when she said that to me, I was like, oh, okay. I never looked at it in that way, but okay.
Yeah, I think there's wisdom there.
Yeah, and it made me shift my thinking about college after I had that conversation with her. But I'm glad that I did have that. All right, so you mentioned that life was rather, can I say chaotic? Can I say helter-skelter-ish, I guess? How did you look at life then? And how did you change the perspective?
Those were pretty, maybe chaotic is the right word as I look back at it. Having not had a father to give me any wisdom or guidance, there were some youth leaders in my life who could teach me that God loved me and that God has a plan for my life. But there was just a huge amount of, I don't know what to do. And so I would learn the hard way. And I think I did okay. I'm alive. I got a job. I kept the job. I got another job. I kept the job. So the formative years were just learned by mistake. I think that's kind of what is the foundation of where I am today, is that nobody was there to do anything for me. Not that they didn't care about me, but you had to do your own stuff. You had to earn your own job. You had to work it. You had to be responsible for it. And as finances were hard, you had to live with very little. And if you made more money, then you could enjoy it. But there was a lot of times where money was tight and different things, and things got more expensive. So I just learned as I went along that there's so much more I don't know. And so I wish I had other people that I would invite into my journey who I could ask questions from. I think that would have been a helpful situation, but I really did learn trial by fire and by making mistakes.
Why, when you said that, I was thinking about the Don Henley song "Harder to Matter," and the lyric, "The more I know, the less I understand."
Yeah, word.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, and I think about myself around that time period too, and I'm like, wow. And of course, now I have a lot of wisdom from that experience to now, and I look back then, I'm like, ooh, I did not know a lot. I did not know a lot at all. Oh my gosh, I was just going through almost like I was blind. Oh wow.
And I remember taking the job at the ad agency because the guy at my church said the guy who ran it was a Christian guy. And I thought, well, I'll start my career with a Christian owner, and then I can build my career on a foundation of integrity and morality and walking with. And about a month or two into being at the company, I started watching things carefully as what they did. And they didn't pay for copies of the software they used on their computers. They cheated their clients for hours. And so when I was having the business owner, I'd say, hey, how do you do that? I mean, we're Christians. We're supposed to be the example of godliness in the business world. And he looked at me like, hey, I couldn't afford to be in business if I had to pay for all that stuff. I go, but that's the whole point, isn't it? Isn't the whole point of your owning your own business is to do it in a way that pleases the Lord? And if you've got to rob someone or steal in order to be successful, you clearly suck at your job. Go do something else. But to be able to call yourself a Christian and then be a bad businessman, a dishonest businessman, I think that doesn't represent Jesus well. So I was very disappointed with that start in my career, but I quickly learned a lot of people will call themselves Christians in the workplace,
Mhm.
but they don't act like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The prospect of, or the tenets of what we know to be a Christian life. Yeah, I could. I've been in workplaces too where that was absent, but people would say, "Well, yeah, I'm a Christian."
That used to
Yeah,
mean the same thing as I'm an American. And everyone
yeah,
used to think that, well, if you're here, you're a Christian. Or
yeah.
if your parents were a Christian, you're a Christian. It's not. It's a
No.
personal relationship with Jesus Christ where
Hmm.
you've accepted the gift of salvation that is free by repenting and confessing your sins and declaring that Jesus is Lord. That makes you a Christian. And that's a starting point.
Thank
And
you.
then what makes you a good Christian, if you were to say such a thing, because I don't think that description is fair,
I
you
agree.
actually enjoy your faith. You actually know God. You actually hang
Ooh.
out with God. Like if you and I were friends, I wouldn't like, I'll see you next year. I would like hang out with you every day. But for some reason, we think God is this thing we visit on Sundays. God is not a thing we visit. God is inside of us, and He wants to be our friend, our Father, our provider. But He also is God, and He expects obedience. He expects righteousness. He expects that we do the things that He created us for. So I think there's ownership on our part that we step up our game here.
Okay, so accountability is more than just business.
Oh yeah. Oh
Got it.
yeah.
Got it.
I
Got it.
think that's the thing. There's only one person in the world you'll ever be accountable to, and that's God. Everyone
Oh, it's true.
else is you have the chance to be accountable, but you have to be honest with them. If you and I say, "Hey, we're both going to be working on this. We're going to read our Bible every day," okay?
Right.
And then you be my accountability buddy. And then I
Hmm.
call you on Tuesday and you're like, "Yeah, I read it, but you didn't." You could lie. I don't know.
Hmm.
So no one
True.
can hold anyone accountable. But if you truly want change in your life, you have to hold yourself accountable.
Right.
But we fail at it all the time. We're miserable in accountability. But we will be accountable to God someday. The Bible says we will all stand before God. And whether you like it or
Yeah.
not, whether you acknowledge Him or not, every single
Hmm.
person in the world will at one point stand before God. And so what you decide to do today is going to affect what you do for eternity. And those of us who are Christ followers, even though we're going to get in the door and we'll be in
Hmm.
heaven, we won't be in hell, we're still accountable to God. We're accountable for the things we did or did not do. Real accountability to God. There's nothing you can hide. You can't spin it. You can't go, "Whoa, God." He's like, "I know what you did." There's no way to smooth it out. And so I
Right.
think if we're really going to be a Christian, that we have to up our game because we are truly accountable to God for everything we do or don't do in our lives.
Mm. Ooh, my goodness. Oh, I just heard a mic drop. Okay. Yeah. That. Yes. 100%. I'm 100% with you. Uh, yeah. When it comes to, and we'll talk even further about that. When it comes to conversation about being a Christian, I see more people talk about, well, yeah, I go to church on Sunday and
Yeah.
I do this function in the church. Either I'm an usher or I'm a choir member or I'm on the board. Uh, uh, I do these things. And it's like, okay, well, all right. So you function as a Christian, but you're not feeding your soul, feeding your spirit.
And you can't really function as a Christian if you're not feeding your soul, because it's not necessarily the words you say or the place you go to on Sundays. It's how you treat people every day of the week.
Yeah.
You're at work for more time than you are at home.
Right.
You're at work for more time than you'll ever go to church.
Right.
And so for us to be able to go to work 5 or 6 days a week and act like a jerk and treat people poorly and be mean
Mm-mm.
and steal and be a horrible person, that's not being a Christian. And
No.
whatever excuse you want to throw down on that, it's not going to matter for God. There's four things that we do that prove we're not being accountable, and one of them is to make excuses. And so if you have to make an excuse, well, at work I just have to be this kind of person. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Right.
If you can't get your job done without being an ass, then you shouldn't have that job. Or you don't know what you're doing. Go get skills, go get trained, or get another job. But don't make an excuse that I got to be a horrible tyrant in order to make things work at the workplace. That's messed up.
Yeah, it is. It is. And what is even more messed up is people still believe, well, I have to be an ogre. I have to be cantankerous. I have to have this stick up my butt in order to subsist and survive, and actually in order to, in their minds, thrive. And I'm glad I'm talking to someone who understands, no, that's not how you go about it.
Yeah.
You go about it by being loving to other people, even if it is in business. Because the more love that you give, the more love you receive. And when you receive it, it's going to be something to the likes of which where people are looking at you like, how in the world did you get blessed so much?
Well, and love and kindness does not exclude discipline and
No,
expectations and
no,
measurables. I can
no.
have KPIs set up for all my employees. I can have procedures and processes that are in writing for every one of my employees that says this is exactly what you do. This is how we do it. These are our core values. All the things that we want them to do, we can all describe it and we can still hold them to a level of expectation. You don't do it, you don't work here. But at the end of the day, it's up to them to perform or not. But you don't have to be a jerk to do that.
No.
I think that's the problem is we just feel like we can be any way we want to be as long as we get the work done. That tends to be, especially in today when people are aware and there's lots of choices out there. Hey, if you're a bad boss, I'll go find another job. It may take them longer, but they'll find another job somewhere.
Yes. The more transient workplace. Yes. And I think
And
that's what
frankly,
you're seeing.
no one keeps a job more than a couple years anymore, right? So
Right.
if you're a jerk, they'll make it 6 months.
Make it sooner. I was about to say it would be even shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what you've just said, I think that points to why the workplace is more transient, is because you have people who are like, I want to enjoy what I do, but the people around me suck. And if I can't change them, I'll change the environment and go somewhere else.
That's a great example of when you interviewed for a job, you said you would be awesome. You told about how great I am here. This is me. You got to hire me. I'm the most hardworking, responsible person. You can count on me. I know all these skills. I'm going to be great. And then you show up at work and your boss is a jerk and your coworkers are lazy and the clients are mean. And all of a sudden you change from what you promised you would do when you interviewed to just show up and do the very least you have to do because your job sucks. And the reality is you said you would be this way. So you should live up to what you said. Now, if your workplace is broken, be a force of change to change that. Or if you really can't do anything about it, it's just going to stay broken, you could leave. But for you just to stay there and collect a paycheck and not deliver on what you promised you'll be the hardest working, most caring, creative, all this stuff. But just because work sucks, you now make excuses for why you're going to be lazy or not try or not care. That was not what you said when you interviewed. And so you have to decide, will I leave here? Will I try and help the organization to become better? And if they won't respond, I guess I'll have to leave. But just to stay there and be someone who self-sabotages or ruins the culture is not living up to your word. You're not being responsible or accountable at that moment.
And that was a lesson I had to learn recently. And I had to call myself to carpet. I'm like, yeah, you might not be liking this particular part of the job, but is it them? Is it the job? Or is it you? And I'll be doggone when I actually accepted the fact it was me, performed better, and was better to the people that I'm over, because I had to learn, like you said, in the job interview, I said that I was going to be not perfect, but I was going to be this person that they would love, they would trust, they would rely on, they respect, they would admire. You're not doing things at this moment that are trustworthy and admirable, and quite frankly, you don't want to keep your own company. So why would others want to? And I wasn't, I wasn't being cantankerous. I wasn't cursing people out or anything like that.
No, you just weren't giving it your all. You weren't doing your best.
Right.
And if you bought a pair of shoes and they were a $300 pair of Jordans or something out there that's really expensive, and you brought them home and the sides start coming apart and the laces fall through and the soles of the shoe had no cush to it, you take it back immediately. This is a joke. These are horrible.
Right.
But when you hire a human and you bring them in, they can show up and sit at their desk, and by all rights, it looks like they're working hard. This
Mm-hmm.
is why people don't want people to work remote. All of my clients are CEOs
Mm.
and business owners, and they don't like the idea of people working from home because they don't know if they're working hard. And I've had to work really hard to help them understand you don't know if they're working hard when they're sitting in a cubicle right in front of you, because you
Exactly.
can't, there's no gauge on their head that goes working hard. It doesn't say that. And since you haven't created very clear expectations of what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it, you don't know. I mean, the old days when we made machinery, a thing came down the conveyor belt, you put the bolt on it, you pass it to the next guy. You could
Mm-hmm.
tell if Joe was putting out 30 units a day. But
Right.
today we sit in front of a computer. We have no idea if someone's productive. We really can't measure it. The only time I know is when the problem happens and I can blame you for it. So we just sit around the whole time waiting for something to go wrong so we can blame people and say they're not doing a good job. But we haven't created a world of opportunity where they know what it looks like to succeed. We only know how to tell them when they're wrong.
Right. Right. I tell people about the department I used to work in, and we would actually have to report to, and I work in journalism. We actually had to report to the newsroom every day, every weekday, and sometimes on the weekends. And I don't think we saw our director, but maybe once every 4 months, maybe. Now we may have talked to her in between that, but just lay eyes on her. We probably saw her like once every 4 months. The unit didn't seem to be cohesive, and it wasn't drama filled. It just was. We basically were just sort of like just to ourselves.
Yeah.
The moment we became remote, the unit actually ended up working better. And it was the strangest thing. People that I didn't even have any type of connection with ended up being ended up being one of my closest allies. I'm like, why wasn't it the case if we were only maybe feet away from each other? But now we're in each other's homes and we connect with each other better and closer than we did. We were only just maybe 2 or 3 rulers apart. Yeah, it's amazing how that is. But I can understand why CEOs or managers in upper levels would think, well, it'd be better if they actually reported to work. But yeah, you're exactly right. How do you know? You're so busy with meetings of your own. Like, you don't check on your charges. You don't check on the people who you're responsible for all that much or all that often.
Right.
You barely even check with the people who help you do that. So,
yeah, if we want to increase productivity, we don't need to hire more people. We need to free people up who have the job to do the job well. And
right.
so if we're not creating the processes, and remember, as a leader of your company, you manage a process, but you lead people. And so if I'm sitting there managing people, I've done it wrong. I have to create a vision of where we're going they get excited about. I have to create processes and standardizations so we can do it consistently over time. And I have to figure out what I want to be seen like as an organization and teach those values to our employees so they know how they're supposed to roll. If I do all those things, people can be more productive because they're engaged. The great resignation that we talked about a few years ago, really people have been not working hard at work for a long time.
Right.
And they're just sitting around doing the very least they have to do. But if we can create something that recreates mojo back in the business where people feel an energy and a vision of where we're going, and they're free and they're engaged to go do things creatively, they'll step up. They want to do so. Otherwise, it's a long day to sit there and go, this is boring. But if you give them the opportunity to be engaged and tell them, this is your area, this is your bowling lane, stay in the lane, don't go in the gutter. You get a lot of room in there. You can be very productive. You give people the chance to be engaged, they'll be more productive.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you there. Now, one of the things that you talk about is overload. And we've sort of hinted a little bit at that with this conversation. So, in your life, what did you do to cause an overload to happen in it?
Yeah, we all have overload in our lives. We're not aware of it because we're so used to it. It's been subtle, little bit by bit. And we've just learned to live in a life of overload. And there's 4 buckets that you have to look at to watch out to avoid overload: time, finances, health, and emotions. And if you can be aware of your time and how much load you carry, then you can adjust to make sure that you don't hit overload. But if you fill your calendar full, if anything goes wrong, there's a delay, there's a problem, there's an unforeseen issue, you hit overload. And anytime you go on overload, you're not productive, you're not creative. It can lead to exhaustion, burnout, fatigue. It can be real problems. We make very bad decisions when we're in overload, but we've survived overload for so many years that we just get used to it. You got a full calendar and you got to run from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. And then you run late and people are mad that you're late and you're frustrated that you're late, but you scheduled it like that. That's how you created your calendar. And then you work really late that night and you go on an airplane early in the morning, you go to fly to a meeting and you're supposed to be on, you're in front of people, you're trying to have everything. And you survived it. It worked, but you weren't your best. And you can never measure that, because if it succeeded, you're like, hey, it's okay. I can stay up late, travel, and go right back and do it again. So we've got a false sense of awareness of our abilities because we survive it. But with the creativity, the productivity is diminished when you're on overload. So if you can create a world where there's room for the unexpected in your time, your finances, your health, and your emotions, then you can avoid overload. You'll have times where it will spike up and you'll have to adjust. And maybe one category like time will go overload for just a little bit, but you rein it in. You keep it as a standard of living where there's room for the unexpected things. And I think also as a Christ follower, where does God have room to interrupt your life? If you spend all your money on you and God says, hey, give to this missions trip. I don't have any money. Yeah, because you spent it all on you. I can't tithe. You spent it all on you. I'm just making minimum payments on my credit cards. I can't afford to tithe. Well, that was because you spent it. So if you create a world where you have margin in your money, in your calendar, where God can say, hey, stop and talk to that person right now. Go give some of your time to help this organization. Health, where you get a good, healthy body and you can go do things where you're physically engaged and able to do. And then the emotions, where you can genuinely care. All those things are now tools available for God to do what he wants to do in your life, because you created room for him to interrupt you.
Yeah. And the Bible says that the Lord loves a cheerful giver. It's strange when your life is more joyful, you're more willing to give. And overload seems to, and I know this has been that way for me, seems to curtail that joy in wanting to give, because you're more self-absorbed in your life.
Yeah. You don't have joy because you ran out of money, but you ran out of money because you didn't maintain margin. You spent more than you had, and now you're just going to spend all the money you make to try and get down or lower the payment or just make minimum payments. But that was your choice. You did that.
Yeah. And that's something that's something that you have to own up to. And
that's accountability.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have done that. So, yeah.
Well, we tell that story in our book, Nobody Cares Until You Do, that we owed $90,000 in credit card debt, did not include the house or the cars. And it caused stress and anger at God and frustration and disappointment and worry. And we just realized we're not living the life we want to live. And when you take accountability for everything in your life, you gain the power to change anything in your life. And so when we took accountability for our own junk and we stopped blaming God for it, and we stopped being mad at the world or at God or each other that things weren't the way we wanted to be, and we really truly owned it, then we could do something about it. So instead of being a victim and saying, I got a bad situation here and this is no good, and all the things that we do to hold ourselves as a victim, we say, look, we own this. So what do we want to do? Well, we have equity in our house. Why don't we sell our house and start over? Hey, that's a horrible idea. I like my house. I don't want to sell my house. But it was an option. And we looked at all the things we could do, and that was the best choice. So we sold our house. We downsized. We took the money from the sale of the house and we paid off everything we owed and we started over. But we owned it. And at that moment, we had freedom and we had peace because we owned it.
Wow. I love that negative accountability gives you. Wow.
That was the thing I was telling you before we started. People don't understand the word accountability. It is not a bad thing. It is not a threat. No. It's a good thing. It's power. It's freedom. Because if I own it, I can change it. That affects my marriage. That affects my health. That affects my faith. Everything. I own it. Therefore, I can change it.
Mhm. See, these nuggets right here. If you all want to know why I wanted to do a show like this, that type of nugget is the reason why. Oh my gosh, yes. Ooh, we're gonna dig even further. This was a good one right there. Whoa. The man who calls himself the accountability guy, Robert J. Hunt, he joins me on Revelations with Cole Johnson. Well, he's opened the way quite well, I may add. We just walked across that bridge, and now it is time to dig behind the purpose. Now, behind the purpose, this is the reason why we function the way we do. And earlier we did touch, and actually we've touched all throughout this conversation about the importance of the relationship with Jesus. Now, you already answered when you gave your life to him. How has your relationship grown in Jesus since you started a relationship with him as, well, a child?
Well, as a child, I played church a lot. As I got older, I understood how to play the game. Again, back to that principle, don't piss off your dad. If I didn't piss off my Heavenly Father, I thought I was doing fine because I didn't get struck by a lightning bolt. I must be okay. And I grew up playing that game. Even as an adult, in my early career, I ran a Sunday school class at my church and then took my clients out to nudie bars. And so, my standard is church life here, work life here. And God forbid if they ever met each other, it would be a very scary moment. And it wasn't until I was 31 years old that I finally surrendered my life to Jesus completely. You could be saved and not surrender. And there's a big difference. When you surrender, you want to obey God because he's in charge. You could be saved, avoid hell, but live a life separated from God because you've never surrendered. When you fully surrender to God, then you want to obey God because he's in charge. When you obey God, blessings come. He wants to bless us, but it requires us to be obedient. If your kid disobeys and you say, well, I'm not going to take you to the movies. We were supposed to go to the movies, but your bid did beat so bad. Go to your room. We're not going to. So he wants to give you something good, but he can't because you're disobeying. It's the same thing with us as adults. Surrendering to God, now we work for him. Then the obedience that comes with when you work for that person, you do what they want. When you're obedient, you have blessings. Life is good. You avoid the difficult things that trip us up as Christ followers. And I've just had to learn that when I surrender and I'm obedient, that life is way better.
Yes, it is, my friend. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The one thing about the walk with Christ, I think about the footprints story where, and of course for those who are unfamiliar, I'm sure you are, but for those who aren't, it's a story of you seeing two sets of footprints, and then all of a sudden, down the path a few hundred feet, you see that there's only one set of footprints. And then the person turns to Jesus and said, well, wait a minute. I only see one set of footprints. Why did you leave me? And Jesus said, no. I didn't leave you. That was the moment where you needed to rely on me more. So I carried you.
Yeah. There's another version of that where then there's a set of footprints and then one set of footprints with a line behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked Jesus, well, what's that line for? He goes, that's when I dragged you there. How many times has God dragged us to where he wants, you lost a job that you really love, but you lost it because you weren't modeling godliness. I went through a divorce in my life. I'd been bankrupt. I had all these things. And there were many times where God was dragging me where he wanted me to go because I'm like, hey, I'm comfortable here in my little sin. I'd like to stay where it's warm and fuzzy. And he is not, he has more for me to do. And so he will drag me there because he loves me.
Mm. Yeah, I think he dragged me so much. I think I have scars for all the times that I did reluctantly want to be dragged. So,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Oh, yeah, I like that too. I gotta remember that one. Tragedy. I like that. All right. Now, one of the things that you seem to be so passionate about is coaching CEOs. So, how did the REF Dallas become a reality?
I didn't even want to own my own business. I love working with business owners. Even through my career in marketing, I would go to work with business owners and say, what do you want to do? Let's make a plan. Let's have a strategy. I loved working with business owners. But I found that there wasn't a place for business owners to be real. And when you're real, you get help. And so I started it in 2013. And I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. Just like a whole career. This is a very consistent trend of I don't know what I'm doing. But I knew that I was good at listening. I'm good at asking questions. I'm really good at caring for people. So over the years, I've learned how to run a meeting well. Business owners come into this meeting. We spend time together talking through the issues we're dealing with, but not commiserating, challenging, encouraging, sharing best practices. You're learning from each other. It's having your own board of advisors. As you get to be a bigger company, you'll usually have a board, and that
Right.
is there to tell you, hey, that's not smart. Hey, don't go there. Hey, here's how I did this. And they help you get better. They help you avoid traps. Well, that's what our group does. And I love having all these minds together in the room, looking at a situation and going, here's what I'm going to do. I got this problem. This is where I'm going to go. And everyone else goes, oh, that's interesting. What about this? What about? And they help you think of things you had not thought of before so you avoid a pitfall. I mean, think of COVID. When COVID hit, we didn't know what to do.
Right.
Do we send them home? Do we bring them back? Do we make them wear a mask? Do we not? I mean, all these questions and how to deal with PPE and PPP and all that stuff.
Right.
So having a group of people who were there, who were learning together, sharpening each other, because we've had other fiascos. We went through 9/11.
Right.
We had a shutdown for 9/11. One of my clients started a trade show company the day 9/11 happened. People didn't go to trade shows anymore. There were fear of terrorists. And so that whole industry stopped.
That's
And he
right.
just started a business that day. And when COVID hit, I had two other clients who started a business on the month where we shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so where do you know how to deal with this stuff? But we've learned together, and we encourage each other and we sharpen each other. And so I've learned how to be a good room host. I'm like the dad in the classroom going, settle down. But I'm not the smartest person in the room. They are, and it's beautiful to watch them come together and help each other.
Mm. The feel I get with you, and when I was doing research on you, and I got to that part of it, the term that just seemed to overwhelm me was CEO safe space. And it's funny, you know, when you talk about the dynamics of the workplace, you have a whole lot of compassion for the layperson. You have less compassion for the manager. You have even less compassion for the executive. And you seem to have little compassion, not you, but the general sense.
Yeah,
You seem to
yeah.
have little to no compassion for the CEO.
Oh yeah.
And I've been around entrepreneurs. Heck, my wife is one. So if I ever had that mindset of, well, people who run businesses or people who own businesses, well, they're ogres. They suck.
Yeah. They're
Yeah,
just taking home big buckets of money every night.
right.
And we're just
Yeah,
sitting in their room. We're going
right.
golfing and enjoying
Right.
all the high
They
life.
they don't care about the little man.
Right.
Just hearing my wife talk about her business. If I thought that thought process got completely turned on its ear.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel more compassion towards CEOs. And I'm glad there is something along the lines of what you do in basically saying, okay, look, you have problems that we can relate. Let's come, let's share it, let's work through them, let's work out whatever problems you would have. and you actually might end up becoming a better leader in
Oh,
the
you
process.
absolutely do. It's very lonely at the top. We've heard that
Hmm.
phrase forever, but it
Yeah.
really is true.
Hmm.
Nobody understands the role, the burden a CEO carries. You have to know everything about everything. It's ridiculous. Cybersecurity, HR law, contracts, inventory, how do the P&L and how the finances are, and whatever you did, whatever widget you make, you have to not
Right.
only be really great at that to make people want to buy it all the time, but you have to do all the other stuff around it so that you don't know, so that you know if someone's not telling you the truth. My clients get ripped off by their employees on a regular basis. A
Hmm.
trusted financial person in the accounting department stealing millions of dollars. And they'll have lawsuits from angry employees who were doing bad behaviors, and you have to let them go. And then they turn around and sue you. And they
Right.
take all the risk. I've had them go through bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy, because the business
Ooh.
didn't survive. And they worked hard and they did everything they could. But because of COVID or because of these things or because of market
Mhm.
change, stuff happens. They take all the risk. There's no appreciation for them. It's tough to be the final decision maker. That's why our group is here. We're there for them.
And I'm glad you are a resource for them. And as I said to you before, you know, I think it's laughable that people look at CEOs as uncaring individuals. Now, do we have CEOs who are uncaring individuals?
Sure.
Yes,
Sure.
but not all of them are.
Well, and I'll tell
I
you
would
one of the
dare
reasons
say
why
most of them are. Yeah,
they want to be uncaring because when you're nice to somebody,
right.
they take advantage of you. And
Oh
they get screwed enough
man.
times that they go, look, I'm done
Oh,
with that. I'm just not going to do it. There was a woman who was stealing from the company, and they found out that she was stealing from the company, and they confronted her, and she said, well, my son has a medical condition. I can't afford the medicine. It's so expensive. I had to steal. And you didn't have to steal. You could have done something else, but nonetheless, she's
right,
not taking accountability for that.
right.
But they, instead of firing her, they moved her to a place where she would never touch the money again. And they all raised money to help provide for her. So
Mhm.
when someone else had a problem, someone who's a really mean person in the company that nobody likes, nobody wanted to help that person. But
Right.
now they're like, hey, you helped her. Why don't you help me? And so you're punished for being nice. These are the kind of moments where someone says, fine. So from now on, I won't
Mhm.
be nice to anybody because I just don't need the hassle. And that's hard. You have to keep a sensitive, caring heart. You gotta not become rock hard against the world. But
Right.
boy, it's calling at you all the time because the beatdown you get as a business owner is incredible. And you get jaded, you get hard-hearted. It's just the reality. It's hard not to end up that way.
Have you been in my house? Because I'm swear those types of things that you just said. Uh, these are the type of conversations I have with my wife, and she will say those exact same things. I try to go out of my way for these people, and they take advantage of me.
Yeah.
They just take it. You know what? That's it. I'm not gonna be nice with them anymore. Forget that. Forget them. No, and it goes against the fertile heart that she has, because
Yeah.
she has a caring heart for
Right.
any and everybody. But I can understand why she would feel that way, because people treat her kindness as a weakness, and people think that when she is being kind, that she is being a pushover. And I'm like, nah. And I tell some of her workers, I'm like, yeah, my wife is nice, my wife is kind, but she's no pushover.
Yeah. You
And,
use that phrase that really wisely. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness.
mhm,
And that's a great phrase. And it's
yeah,
really hard. Those of us who call ourselves Christians and are very bold about it,
mhm,
you're in a workplace where you're faced with, do I be kind and caring to people and have the threat of them taking advantage of me? Or do I pull back in my heart and just be this cold person who just says, just get your job done? Well, how do I marry this
right,
passion of wanting to represent Jesus, who's caring and loving and kind and long
mhm,
suffering and faithful? How do I want to be that guy or girl
mhm,
and still have this reality of that people take advantage of your kind? I don't know. I don't know. But God equips some people to be the final decision maker of a company who are Christ followers, and God will equip you with the skills and the resources that are necessary to do every job. Wherever He puts us, He will equip us to do it well. and it's going to be hard and it might suck. But if you've been created for that moment, don't shy away from walking out your faith boldly just because it's going to be a tough journey. Jesus knows what a tough journey looks like. He had a pretty tough journey himself. And so you can still do it in the strength of the Lord. Just don't give up.
I dare say I think he had the toughest journey any human being has ever had in,
Yeah.
in the history of the earth. Yeah. And yeah, anyone who would know about tough journeys, Jesus definitely would. Man, this is a wonderful conversation. You offer something in REF Dallas called Get Out of a Rut. So explain, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think that sometimes we're just stuck. I think as leaders, you get to a place where mentally you feel stuck. You're not stuck, but you feel that way. And I think most of the problems that leaders deal with is up in their head. There's a lot of head trash. And after enough beat down and beat down, and then the world beat down, and then the emotional beat down, and the family beat down, after a while, you just feel stuck. However, if you have someone who's not attached to your emotions, not in your situation, look at where you're at, they can go, wait, that's not true. You have all these other options. Why aren't you doing this one? You told me about this. Why don't you do this? And my get out of rut conversation is not because I'm smarter than you. I don't know your business. I don't know how to fix your problems. You do.
Right.
But I know how to see when you're not acknowledging what you could do, where you just have lost hope, where you are so frustrated that you just want to stop and not go anywhere. I have the ability, since I'm not attached to your emotions, to go, just take one step. Just do one thing today. Write down one thing you're going to do today and get that thing done. And then tomorrow, do another thing. And the step of a journey of 1,000 miles starts with that first step, right? The contrast to that is the longer it takes for you to take that first step, the less likely you will ever take it. And so you hire an executive coach to sit and listen to you and go, dude, you can do this. This is not that hard. You got this. Let's take one step today. What's the first step you're going to take? What would you take? All right, let's do this together right now. That's the get out of a rut call.
You sound like a college professor I had, where he said in our capstone project in the beginning of it, he says, yeah, I know there's a lot of work that you have to go and do, and there's a lot of research that you have to actually apply to this project. But I will help you in making sure that you could probably do your best at it. And he just paused for a second. He looked at us and he said, how do you eat an elephant? And of course, we quizzically looked at each other, and then we looked at him like he had a third eye on his head. And after the murmurs, he quieted us down and says, you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And I love that thought process of, yeah, there's a whole lot of something in a big undertaking, but you can chop at that undertaking bit by bit, step by step, process by process, until you can, at the end of it, look and say, wow, I accomplished this. And you learn a lot about yourself in undergoing the process. Wow, it actually sounds like the journey that you take as a Christian.
Yeah, that's one of the principles of accountability. When you finally figure out that you don't like the way things are, we put a satisfaction assessment in the book, and you can go to nobodycaresbook.com and take it for free. It's on the website. But we have a satisfaction assessment for you to step back and go, okay, let's be honest. Where am I satisfied with my life or not? If I don't like this and that, let's declare I don't. Then the question is, well, why don't you like it? Right. And it's at that point that you start to make excuses and blame and say you can't do anything about it, or just decide to wait and hope. And those are all victim decisions. But if you can commit, look, nobody cares unless you care enough to do something about it. Then there are step-by-step ways to go and attack everything. It's not fixed the moment you declare nobody cares, but you're willing to take the first step. And it's that first step, like we decided we're going to sell our house. That's the first step. And then the second thing was to reach a real estate agent. And then we had to get it ready to sell. And then we had to go through this thing to sell it. There was stuff to do. It was hard. It was humbling. It was painful. But we had, the first step was to say, I'm not happy with my life. Here's why, and here's what I'm going to do about it. And we owned it. So your journey in accountability starts at the moment when you take the first step, which is to acknowledge nobody cares until you do. And when you're willing to do that, you now own it and you can do something about it. But it's going to be a journey. It'll take effort, but you can do it.
Mm. Yeah. 100% agree with that. Wow. Yeah. It's like peeling back an onion layer. An onion is just like layers and layers and layers. Let me see. How can I ask this question? So, we talked about leadership and we talked about being a resource for leaders. I guess we can talk about probably your closest resource other than Jesus as a leader. So what role does your wife in particular, in family, in general, play in being an effective leader?
Well, my wife is my best friend, and she's the coolest chick I ever met. She thinks she's the most beautiful woman in any room. And for me, I could have only done the things I've done because of my beautiful wife, Kathy. When I said, we got to sell the house, that's the solution. She's like, okay. No arguing, no convincing, because my wife believes in me. And because she believes in me, I feel like I can do anything. I don't take advantage of that. I don't boss her around. I don't take advantage of her kindness. I consult with her. We walk together, but I'm the risk taker, like the CEO. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, that $90,000 in debt, that was my fault because I allowed it. And I own that. And because I own it, because I take responsibility, I take accountability for everything, my wife believes in me. And so her support for me enables me to start my own business, change careers at the age of 50. I was 48 when I changed careers to go in something I had no reason to be doing. And her confidence in me and in my faith in the Lord, therefore the ability of God to provide, that just gave me so much confidence to go and do all these things. She's always got my back. I feel like I can do anything because of her.
I had a feeling you was going to say that. I had to give you the floor for that. It's great that you have that help meet, not mate, meet. I'm glad you have that help meet because she was designed to help you meet what God wanted you to do. That is awesome. And of course, vice versa. But that is awesome. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you've been blessed to have a woman like that in your life.
Indeed.
That is awesome. Author, entrepreneur, business coach, Robert J. Hunt joins me on Revelations with Cole Johnson. Well, he's opened the way. He's walked across that bridge. We got behind the reason why he is the way he is. And now it is time to bring all of that to light. Now, here on this program, we all believe that all of us shine in a unique way. Obviously, one Mr. Hunt shines in a unique way, his own self. One of the ways he does shine in a unique way is that he is called something that I think most would probably shy away from, the accountability dude. So how did you become the accountability dude or the accountability guy?
Well, I talk about it all the time. It's become the thing that I focus on the most because I see so much power in it. There's actually an accountability guy in Australia, and I didn't want to be disrespectful, so I'm going as accountability dude. Plus, growing up in Southern California, everybody was a dude, so it made more sense to be the accountability dude. I want to have that name because I want people to understand accountability is good. Accountability is not bad. and you don't even understand accountability, and you're not being accountable. And I want to have a conversation. I will talk to anybody. Tell me your problems, and I will show you quickly somewhere in there you are blaming or making excuses or saying you can't do anything about it or just waiting and hoping it's getting better. And it's not, and you're not owning it. And I want people to start looking at life differently so that life can be better, because life is better when you own it.
Oh my gosh. You gotta stop dropping these nuggets. Oh my gosh. Woo.
I think if, let's say, the most common excuse I hear people complain about is they got a crappy job.
No, yeah.
All right. So you got a crappy job. So you're going to blame your boss?
Mhm.
You're going to make excuses for why you can't leave that job?
Right.
You're going to say, well, I can't afford to take a job that pays me less. Why not? Well, I have all these bills. Well, you chose the bills. I don't have cable. Yep. We had one car for 3 years, and it sucked. Sharing a car sucks.
Yeah, it does.
But it's what we wanted to do to start rebuilding some money and to put money away and to be available to rebuild our wealth. So you make choices. But if you don't have enough, if you don't have a job that pays you enough to pay for your bills, you've got to lower the bills or go find a job that will pay you more. But what you can't do is just keep jacking up the bills and thinking, well, maybe next year I'll get a bonus. That's not being accountable. So whatever your problem is, you got a bad marriage, you got horrible kids, you got bad health. Why is my health bad? Because I like eating cookies. Well, I put the food in my mouth. Hey, if I don't want to eat cookies, don't buy them. Why are they always in the cupboard? Oh, yeah, I buy them. So where do you take ownership that you're fat? That's you. You made that choice. Nobody force-fed you. Nobody makes you do these things. It's you. But when you blame, make excuse, or say I can't do anything about it, or wait and hope, you are living as a victim. And so you've got to be aware when you're unhappy, there's something there you got to own. And when you own it, you can change it. Otherwise, you're going to live as a victim.
You know, my wife and I have been watching these sort of movies where I laugh because the villain, whenever things get all out of kilter and when things happen that because of, you could say, karma, you could say because a person's evil, you could basically, the two of us will deduce, well, yeah, you're not applying Jesus principles in your life. That's why you got what you got, because you made the decision that you did. And you get this heaping of horrible nature upon you. These villains will want to point the blame at somebody else, and they're quick to do it.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah, quick to do it. Like, I'm not getting this. Well, it's that person's fault.
Right. Yeah.
Really? It's
And
not
that's
your fault
where people
because
get
you were
mad.
being right. It's not your fault because you were being petty, or you were being jealous, or you were being evil.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about heated things where people get mad. It's not like I disagree with you. It's I hate you.
Yes.
Because you don't agree with me. I hate you.
Don't get that. Yes.
But you're angry at something. You're blaming Trump. You're blaming the government. You're making excuses for why things are bad. Every 4 years, some other knucklehead takes over our country. And whether or not we like it, they're going to do all kinds of really stupid things
that we don't agree with.
You could be on one side of the aisle or the other. And somewhere in the journey of the years you've had, someone did something you didn't like. Mm-hmm. That's America. It's an experiment, and we are run this way. And so you have to have a reality that this is the way our nation works. So for 4 years, you might like what he does. And then for 4 years, you might hate what he does.
Right.
For us to just be bitter and pissed off at the world for the whole 4 years, some guy's in office, is a waste of time. Own it. If you don't like Trump, figure out what you're going to do while Trump's in office. And then when someone else comes in that you love, then you can have an easy life, like it was so easy when Biden was in charge. We're all going to have issues. We're not going to like somebody or something, and it's all going to be a problem, but own it. Stop being pissed off at the world all the time. Own your junk.
Yes. Finally, I hear someone else who actually gets it. Yes. I say all the time in that arena, uh, there's going to be something you're going to dislike about what this person has done in office, guaranteed in the four, or if they're blessed like Clinton or Obama or W or Reagan were 8 years. You're going to dislike something they do because, well, quite frankly, they're not you.
Right. Yeah.
But I love what you said. It's like, look, forget heaping your problems on somebody that really doesn't know you. Do what you feel as though you can in the given 4 year time period of this person running the country, and you'll be fine, to the point where you probably won't even think, well, yeah, that does kind of suck, but you know what? Life is pretty good here, and
That's right.
and maybe some of those things he's doing, maybe they are beneficial to me, or well, they're not. But you know what? I have my responsibility.
That's right. And when you have to take ownership, when you choose to take ownership, you adjust to the things that come your way. The saddest example will be, I'm going to get cancer and die someday.
Right.
That's just statistically how it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get hit by a bus as often as you get cancer. So for us to be mad that we get cancer is stupid, because everybody dies. You're not having a realistic expectation. So do you want to die this way or that way? I don't want to die at all. Well, you're going to die. So does the fact you got cancer allow you to be mad the rest of your life? I mean, this is the journey we're all going to be on. Right. And I think it's up to us to be able to be okay with the things that are going on and then do something about it. So you don't like Trump? You got 4 years of hell. Fine. What am I going to do? I'm going to affect my neighborhood. I'm going to care for the people around me, the people I work with, the people I go to church with, my friends. I'm going to care for all those people. And I'll guarantee you, you can have a greater impact on the world by being the person who owns the journey you're on than sitting back at home and bitching and moaning while the government falls apart because of tariffs or whatever else. It's going to be miserable for this time, and then we'll have another guy and he'll make it miserable. Let's get over it. Let's get on with living our lives and doing something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I said, even just in the voting aspect of things, like, y'all are getting tied up in the presidency and who's in the Senate and who's representing us in Washington, but you all don't want to represent or even go out and turn out and vote for your mayor, your county judge, school board, city council members. You eschew them because it's too small, but they affect your life a whole lot more than the president ever will. Right.
That's right. That's right.
And I remember when I actually understood that aspect, and this was probably about, I think, 10 years ago when I fully grasped that. I was like, oh, well, you know what? I could gripe about some things I don't like about what the president is doing, sure. But does he really affect my life to the point where it's like, oh, woe is me? Oh no, my life is over.
If you let it, it will.
Right. If you let it, it will.
That's right.
Man, I love the fact that I have someone who actually understands this. Ooh, thank you, Lord, for that. Now, we have sort of danced around it, but I think it's now time we should talk about it. You have a book that is entitled Nobody Cares Until You Do: Living Beyond the Blame, Excuses, and Doubts That Hold You Back. Now, with such a title, why is it so blunt?
People need a wake-up call. We're all deceived. We all think we're being accountable when at best we're just barely being responsible. And so we wanted a title that would get people's attention. And that is the turning point. At some point in your life, you will say to yourself, wait, nobody cares. Nobody cares if I'm fat, broke, unhappy with my marriage, unhappy with my job, hate my kids. Nobody cares. And the reason they don't care is because they got their own junk to take care of.
Right.
We're so caught up on our own stuff. How could I possibly care about your stuff? And then you get mad that nobody cares. But that's the reality, is they're not able to. It's your journey.
Right.
And you don't care enough to do something about it. Why should they care?
Right.
If you don't care enough to stop spending money when you don't have money, if you don't care to have difficult conversations when you're in a unhappy relationship, why should I care about your stuff? I can't in the first place but I'm not gonna because I got my own stuff. So the words are very intentionally stated.
Mhm.
Nobody cares because we want people to wake up and realize that is true. What am I going to do about it? And I hope that that wake up call will shock people enough to go, I got to own my junk. I got to do something about it.
And I'm glad you answered it the way you did, because that was the one thing that hit me right between the eyes. I was like, nobody cares. I said, yeah, that has to be a title that is supposed to say, oh, I'm getting jolted. Okay, okay. So, all right. And then after you get jolted, you step back and you ascertain the situation. You're like, oh, yeah, you're right. No one does care if I'm having a bad whatever day, month, year, time in my life.
Life.
Or life in general.
Yeah.
Right. No one really would care. And really, no, technically, really, no one should. Because guess what? You are acting like you don't care about your own life.
Exactly.
So when other people see that they think or they feel or they sense that you don't care about your life, why should they care about you?
Well, it's like a guy who's addicted to drugs and you keep giving him money because you care about him and you're
Right.
trying to help, but all he does is go out and ruin his life more.
Yeah.
You're actually not helping him by stepping in that way. So I think this is where we just need to own this idea that it's on us, but
Right.
we can do something about it. And one of the key principles of accountability is you invite people in your journey and let them help you. You're vulnerable and honest about your struggles and let people who will support you along the way be there for you, because you can't do it alone. That's why we have our CEO peer groups. That's why we need church. That's why we need friends, because life is better with other people who will support you in the life you want to live, not the self-destructive one that you're doing now.
Ooh.
I think most people spend their time trying to optimize a crappy life instead of
course.
stepping back and going, wait,
How can I make it
that's
better?
not at all the life I want.
Right. How can I make a life better? And if I make my life better, do I have the strength to shed the things that are not making my life good now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you own it. You can.
Yeah. Since you are the accountability dude, I'll ask this question. And you said this earlier, and you're correct. When people mention the word accountability, it has such a negative connotation to it. Why do you think people believe accountability is a bad thing?
Well, I think they misunderstand what it means. They think they're being accountable when they're not. And so then when you call them out, you're offending me because I think I'm being accountable and you're telling me I'm not. But they're really more being like responsible. Here's the difference. If you have kids, you got to feed them, they're hungry. The responsible thing is to feed them. Okay, so you throw donuts at them. And so I fed them. There you go. Shut up. And so if I'm going to be accountable, I'm looking at the outcome I want and I'm being intentional to do the things that I want to do to get the result I'm looking for. Responsible is just responding. You're hungry, here's a donut. Accountable is saying, look, I want you to grow up to be a valuable citizen in this world and take care of yourself. So you're going to help me cook dinner. And you're going to set the table and you're not going to complain about the fact we got Brussels sprouts, even though you don't like them. You're going to be thankful for the food and you're going to help me wash dishes and you're going to be content that I fed you well. But you're going to have things you're going to do along the way that help those kids become leaders, become ready for life on their own. So accountable is taking ownership for the journey to get the result you're looking for. And responsible is just reacting to everything that comes your way. So people think they're being accountable, but they're not. So when you call them out saying you're not being accountable, that's offensive to them because they think they are, but they're really at best just barely being responsible.
I love that. There's accountable and there's responsible. I like that.
Accountable is proactive.
And responsible is very reactive. I never looked at it that way until now. Nice. Okay. Now, you aren't the sole author of this book. You have a co-author. So
yeah.
What made you want to write this book with your co-author, Ceylon Time?
Salem Thine is a great friend of mine, and he's also a client. And he shared with me the principles of the accountability ladder when I first met him. And so we started to apply these principles into my business model, and I was teaching it to clients. And I really helped refine my thoughts through Salem. He's super smart and very articulate. And so he kept saying, "You got to write a book." And I said, "I'm not going to write a book, man. I don't know how to write a book." And so he said, "Well, I'll write a book with you. I'll help you." And so with his support and commitment, we took the step and we hired a publisher. Wow, I lost the word. We hired a publisher,
I understand.
and they gave us a ghostwriter, and that person did all the work. We're two business people. We have companies. He had two at the time. I have my own business and I have my own life. So we paid money for someone to do all the hard work. That's what CEOs do. You have an employee who does the work. That's what you take the money and you trade. So we hired someone to help us get it all done. We created the outline, the stories, all the pieces of it. And this wonderful writer made it all so beautiful. But without Salem's encouragement and wisdom and stories, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have got done.
Mm. I figured he had a huge hand in it. So I was like, okay, well, I have to ask about the co-op.
He's the smarter one in the group.
Oh, well.
He's a
Well, yeah, I did see a couple of interviews that he had that he's done. And yeah, he's extremely insightful.
Yes.
So I totally agree with you there. And he seems like he's a down to earth nice guy.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love to get to meet him actually. So yeah, that was great to actually get the chance to see that. All right, I'm trying to think of what should I ask you now. There's one question I want to ask you. So
I do need to tell you that I've got my son waiting outside because I told him I'd be done at 5. And so I just want to make sure we're wrapping up because I told him I'd take him to the gun range and he's sitting out there with a loaded gun. I got to get close.
Oh, no. I promise this is the last question. Okay. And not because you said that your son has a loaded gun waiting for you. But early in this conversation, you mentioned how you love being in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So why do you love being in the Metroplex so much?
Yeah, the Dallas-Fort Worth area is a great place to be able to do business. And it's a great place to live out your faith. And it's a great place to raise your family. And people want to be here. You know, I grew up in Southern California. We never had a California flag on our front yard. And we didn't celebrate the fact that we were Californians. We just had our own stuff. There's super pride in Texas. Texas is smart with their money, smart with business, smart with their students in the schools. They give freedom. To me, it feels like the best version of what I like to imagine America could be. So from all the things that I value, which is living out my faith, raising a family, enjoying my life, running a business, all those things, I don't want the government in my way. I want to be able to do my own stuff. I don't need them to tell me how to live my life or to provide for me. So I love Texas. It's independent, confident, driven people, and I fit in there well.
Yes, you do. It is not surprising you moved there, and it doesn't surprise me how you've been successful there and how much is a good fit for you. Yeah, and I'm glad you're there, and I hope you continue to thrive and prosper. Oh, my gosh. Author, business coach, the CEO of Safe Space himself, Robert J. Hunt, joins me on Revelations with Cole Johnson. And now we come to the part of the show called Plug Tuning. Now, this is where we just lay out and let the guest plug whatever he or she wants you to know. So without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I love the book that we wrote called Nobody Cares Until You Do. And it's available on Amazon or Target or Walmart or wherever you want to buy it. We just rolled out an audio version of it this week. So it's available on Audible now. But where we prefer you buy it is from us at nobodycaresbook.com. And when you buy it from us, besides getting a cool bookmark and sticker, is we'll sign it, of course. We want to have you in our community. We want to know, we want to hear back from you. We want to know, how did the satisfaction assessment go? What did you learn? How's it going as you read the book? We want to talk to you. And we answer every email that we get from our constituents who read the book and want to talk or share their journey. We want to see you change your life. So we don't need to sell books. We're never going to make our money back on this. We're going to sell 50,000 copies to break even. But what we want to do is change lives. And we believe the book will change your life. So we want you to buy it. We want you to read it. We want you to apply it to your life, and we want you to own it.
Well, we will have all that information too in the description box below, in all the details of this particular episode as well. And yeah, this is something that I definitely going to have to get. And yes, I will do your accountability test too. I have not forgotten about that. And you will know that results as well. So yes, this is, well, I hate the fact that this conversation is over, but unfortunately it is. Author, business coach, CEO Safe Space himself, the accountability dude, Robert J. Hunt. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me.
Thank you.
Many thanks to Robert J. Hunt for giving us his perspective on life. And why don't you join us every Tuesday on YouTube, where you will see a different person being interviewed each week. For changing the world, one conversation at a time. I'm Cole Johnson, and this has been Revelations.